We are now midway through August, and as a gardener in Zone 9, there's a lot of things getting ready to take place. So if you are in Zone 9 as well, we're in a warm zone, we have a really long growing season, and all of our summer veggies will pretty much keep producing up until our first frost. And you may even be in an area that doesn't even get frost, so your veggies can really extend for a long time. But right now is also the time to start thinking about your fall garden. And so a lot of weird things happen this time of year because you may get to the point where you have to pull out plants that are actually still producing so that you have room for your fall vegetables, or maybe you have enough space to keep those summer veggies in the ground and plant your fall veggies. So in this video, I just want to give you a few tips of things to be thinking about right now in August so that you can prepare for your fall garden, but also still take advantage of all the summer veggies that are still producing right now. So the very first thing that I would recommend doing is going through your garden and looking at all of your plants that you have growing. Is there things that still are healthy and producing? If so, leave them in the ground. Do you have plants that were producing well, but now they're kind of starting to die off? Some vegetables continue producing all the way up until your first frost, and you really don't have to worry about them. Tomatoes and peppers are a great example. However, if you have bush green beans planted, you may have already noticed this, or you're likely going to notice it, but they only produce up to a certain point and then they naturally die off. I have these bush green beans right here that were producing like crazy, and then just one day I walked out into the garden and the plants looked dead. And that's just their life cycle. They only produce for so long and then they're done. So I'm not gonna let these plants continue wasting space in this garden bed. I'm just gonna rip them out and save the space for something else. And it kind of just gets you ahead of the game. Instead of having to clean out all your old plants at once, if you can just slowly start taking things out to get your garden beds prepped and ready for fall, you'll be ahead of the game and you'll feel a lot less stressed when it comes time to plant all of your fall veggies. The next thing is to make sure you're actually taking advantage of the fresh fruits that are on your plants. One of my favorite things in the garden is fresh tomatoes, but the problem is that we were out of town and I wasn't really paying that close of attention to my plants, and I was leaving some tomatoes on the vine to get ripe, and then I noticed half of the tomatoes were eaten. And as I went out and took a closer look, there were tomato hornworms that were just demolishing my plants. And so right now I'm going through each morning and trying to take a better peek at my plants to get rid of all these tomato hornworms, because I had all these fresh tomatoes that really didn't get picked, and they just got ate by tomato hornworms. So check your plants for pests. But then when you do have a fresh tomato that's ready to be picked, be sure to pick it so that something else doesn't get to it before you can. Another thing that happens, especially on the hot days, is that your tomatoes might start splitting and then the ants can get in there. And so picking the fruit at its prime is best. If you can ideally harvest once or twice a day, that is gonna really get you ahead. If you wait a few days, things just get in there, whether it be a pest or a bird, a rabbit, ants. There's just so many things that can ruin our harvest, and so don't let that happen. The other thing is to start planning your fall garden. I know it sounds crazy because if you're in a warm zone like me here in Zone 9, we're still having 100-degree days. Right now it's beautiful and cloudy and overcast, and I'm totally enjoying being out in the garden right now. But we've been having 100+ degree days still, and so it's so crazy to think that it's already time for fall planting, but it is. And I have a complete Zone 9 vegetable gardening guide, and it gives you all of your first and last planting dates for fall and summer gardens. But right now, because we're heading into fall, it's going to give you all of your planting dates you need for all of the fall veggies. So some of these things you can get started in pots to then transplant out in the garden. A lot of the stuff you can plant directly by seed in the garden, and that guide has all the information you need. One of the cool things about fall gardening is that it's a lot easier. I know at the end of the season you might feel stressed and be thinking like, man, I just can't wait to have a break from my garden right now. It's been hot, I've been overwhelmed, I've been tired, and I can't even imagine the thought of planting another garden right now and caring for something more. But the thing with fall is that gardening gets 10 times more enjoyable because the weather cools off. You don't have to water as much because hopefully you'll be getting some rain, and so the rain will help water your garden. But you also get to water less frequently because it's not that hot. And I just always know when I plant my fall garden, it's a little bit overwhelming, but then when I'm out in the garden during fall, it is just so much more enjoyable than the summer. There's a lot of veggies that I love for my summer garden, but they sometimes are actually overwhelming because I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but have you ever planted a zucchini plant and then had so much zucchini you just actually didn't know what to do with it? And then, so you're waiting for this first harvest, you're so excited to pick that fresh zucchini, but then it actually starts coming off the plant and you feel overwhelmed. And half of it might get thrown to the chickens or just wasted or given away because you just possibly can't make anything more with zucchini. Well, that's how I'm feeling right now. I always overplant, and then I just don't even have time to use up all of the fresh fruits and vegetables. So the cool thing with fall is that there's not really any plant that goes crazy. A lot of fall plants are root crops like carrots and beets and rutabagas and turnips. And all of those things have a lot longer shelf life. And so you kind of can pick them slower, and you can plant less at once so you're not overwhelmed. And they last a lot longer. So they have a long storage life. And so it's not that overwhelming harvest that comes on like crazy. And they also don't go from being 6 inches to baseball bat size overnight. I'm sure you've found those hidden cucumbers and zucchinis that get beyond their ideal size almost overnight. So fall gardening is just one of my favorite times of year. So I highly recommend getting ready for your fall garden. Like I mentioned, I have this guide. The link will be in the description below, but I also have a free planting schedule. If you're not ready to invest in this guide yet, I have a free planting schedule for you, and you can download that as well. It gives you all of your planting dates so that at least you can get things planted on time and get your crops in the ground when they need to be planted. And so my very last tip for you today is to just start getting in the groove of being in the garden every day. This is something I actually am working on right now. I realize when I go too long in between coming out to the garden to work on simple tasks, I get behind. And weeds go from being a couple inches tall to half my size, and they're overwhelming to pull out. If I don't check on the garden for a couple days, then the pests kind of get out of control. And if I just spend 5 minutes a day in the garden taking care of simple tasks like pulling weeds, even if it's just 3 or 4 weeds in one garden bed and 3 or 4 weeds over here, checking my plants for pests and treating immediately, then I'm so less overwhelmed and I enjoy the garden. I don't feel behind. I just get a little bit done each day. And it's kind of a hard mindset to take on, but it's something I'm working really hard on right now. We have a little one. He's about to be 16 months old, which is crazy, but I just have not had time in this past year to be out in the garden like I used to. And I used to just come out here and spend half a day gardening, and I don't have that luxury anymore. And so I have to be very useful with my time. And so my goal right now is just to spend 5 to 10 minutes a day doing simple tasks. And when I do that and I'm consistent, I feel so much better about it. And then when I come out to the garden, I enjoy things. I don't look around and feel overwhelmed by all of the tasks that need to be done. So as you head into fall, start getting into some sort of routine that lets you enjoy your garden and not feel overwhelmed. And if you're ready to start planning out what to buy for your fall garden, there's so many seeds and plants that I recommend, but some of my favorite crops to grow are the ones that mature quickly because you don't have to wait a really long time to harvest. You get to enjoy them fairly quickly after planting. And if you head to this video right here, I go over 7 quick maturing fall crops that you can plant in your garden and harvest within 30 to 60 days. So head to that video next, and I'll see you there.